In situ conservation means on site conservation. That means when we conserve and protect the whole ecosystem, its biodiversity at all levels is protected. Example, national parks are type of in situ conservation. In micropropagation, cryopreservation, and in vitro fertilization are methods of ex situ conservation. Two statements. There are two statements. Number one is decomposition is a process in which the detritus is degraded into simpler substances by microbes. Statement 2 is decomposition is faster if the detritus is rich in lignin and chitin. Answer is statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is not correct. Explanation. Decomposition is the process by which decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic substances. The rate of decomposition is controlled by chemical composition of detritus and climatic factors. Decomposition is slower if detritus is rich in lignin and chitin and quicker if detritus is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substances like sugars. Hydrocolloid carrageenan is obtained from rhodophyceae only. Hydrocolloids are water holding substances. For example, carrageenan obtained from red algae, rhodophyceae. Pisum sativum shows vexillary aestivation and diadelphous stamens. Vexillary aestivation and diadelphous stamens are the characteristic features of family Fabaceae. Example, Pisum sativum garden pea belong to family Fabaceae, Allium cepa onion, and Colchicum autumnale colchicine belong to family Liliaceae, Solanum nigrum belongs to Solanaceae. Ulothrix is a member of Chlorophyceae green algae with reserve food material, starch. Mannitol is stored food material of Phaeophyceae brown algae. The process of translation of mRNA to proteins begins as soon as the small subunit of ribosome encounters mRNA. When the small subunit of ribosome encounters an mRNA, the process of translation of the mRNA to protein begins. This process is followed by the binding of a bigger or larger subunit. tRNA is activated by the addition of amino acid prior to the attachment of ribosome in the first phase. Pairing of homologous chromosomes never occurs during mitotic division. Pairing of homologous chromosomes occurs during prophase 1 of meiosis. Coiling and condensation of chromatid spindle fibers, attachment to the kinetochores, and movement of centrioles towards opposite poles occur in both mitosis and meiosis. There are two statements. Statement 1, the primary carbon dioxide acceptor in C4 plants phosphoenol pyruvate and is found in the mesophyll cells. Number 2 statement is mesophyll cells of C4 plants lack Rubisco enzyme. In the light of the above statements, both statements are correct. The primary carbon dioxide acceptor is a 3 carbon molecule, phosphoenol pyruvate PEP, and is present in the mesophyll cells. Mesophyll cells of C4 plants lack Rubisco enzyme. Habitat loss and fragmentation, overexploitation, alien species invasion, and coexist extinction are causes for biodiversity loss. Habitat loss and fragmentation, overexploitation, alien species invasion, and co-extinction are causes for biodiversity loss. What is the net gain of ATP when each molecule of glucose is converted to two molecules of pyruvic acid? Answer is 2. During glycolysis, total 4 ATPs are produced from one glucose molecule with a net gain of 2 ATPs. Girdling experiment was performed by plant physiologists to identify the plant tissue through uh, food, food is transported. The girdling experiment shows that phloem is the tissue responsible for the translocation of food, and the transport takes place in one direction, that is towards the root. Which movement not is not observed during apoplastic pathway? The movement is aided by cytoplasmic streaming. Thus, the symplastic system is system of interconnection connected protoplasts. Neighboring cells are connected through cytoplasmic strand that extend through plasmodesmata. The water travels through cell cytoplasm and plasmodesmata. Hence, the movement is relatively slower. Symplastic movement is aided by cytoplasmic streaming. Maize plant does not show plasticity. Plants follow different pathways in response to environment or phase of life to form different kinds of structures. This ability is called plasticity. Example: heterophyll in cotton, coriander, and larkspur. In such plants, leaves of juvenile plant are different in shape from those in mature plants. Maize does not show plasticity. DNA polymorphism forms the basis of both genetic mapping and DNA fingerprinting. Polymorphism in DNA sequence is the basis of genetic mapping of human genome as well as DNA fingerprinting. XO type of sex determination can be found in grasshoppers. Grasshopper is an example of XO type of sex determination in which the males have only one X chromosome besides the autosomes, whereas females have a pair of X chromosomes. There are two statements. One is labeled as assertion A and other is labeled as reason. Assertion is polymerase chain reaction is used in DNA amplification. Reason is the ampicillin resistant gene is used as a selectable marker to check transformation. Both A and R are correct, but R is not the correct explanation of A. Polymerase chain reaction is used in DNA amplification. Ampicillin resistance gene is a selectable marker that helps to check transformation by selection of transformants. The gaseous plant growth regulator is used in plants to promote root growth and root hair formation to increase the absorption surface. Ethylene is a gaseous plant hormone. It induces development of adventitious roots on various types of cutting. It promotes the development of lateral roots and growth of root hairs. Cytokinin helps to overcome the apical dominance. Auxin is used to kill dicot weeds. Gibberellin speeds up the malting process. The device which can remove particulate matter present in the exhaust from a thermal power plant is electrostatic precipitator. Electrostatic precipitator can remove over 99% particulate matter present in the exhaust from a thermal power plant. Catalytic converters are fitted into automobiles for reducing emission of poisonous gases. STP are associated with sewage treatment. There are two statements. Number one is cleistogamous flowers are invariable autogamous. Statement 2 is cleistogamy is disadvantageous as there is no chance of cross pollination. Answer is both the statement 1 and 2 are correct. Cleistogamous flowers does not open at all. In such flowers, autogamy occurs. Lack of cross pollination is a disadvantage of cleistogamy. Exoskeleton of arthropods is composed of chitin. As a chitin forms the exoskeleton in arthropods and is found in fungal cell wall. N-acetyl glucosamine is the monometric unit. Cellulose is a polysaccharide. Cutin is a derived lipid. The flowers are zygomorphic in Gulmohar and Acacia. When a flower can be divided into two similar halves only in one particular vertical plane, it is zygomorphic. For example, P. Gulmohar, P. Cassia. Mustard, datura, and chili show actinomorphic flowers. Frankia produces nitrogen fixing nodules on the roots of ulnas. The microbe Frankia produces nitrogen fixing nodules on the root of non leguminous plants. Example ulnas. Moths and butterflies are the most dominant pollinating agents among insects. Is incorrect answer. Answer is among the animals, insects, particularly bees, are the dominant biotic pollinating agents. The presence of chromogenic substrate gives blue colored DNA bands on the gel. Regarding gel electrophoresis technique, the answer is wrong because yes, bright colored bands of DNA can be observed in the gel when ETBR, ethidium bromide treated DNA, is exposed to UV light. Production of cucumber has increased manifold in recent years. Application of ethylene phytohormones has resulted in this increased yield as the hormone is known to produce female flowers in the plants. Ethylene increases the number of female flowers and fruits in certain plants such as cucumber. Gibberellins are used to increase the size of fruit in some plants. What amount of energy is released from glucose during lactic acid fermentation? Less than 7%. Less than 7% of the energy in glucose is released during lactic acid fermentation, and not all of it is trapped as high energy bonds of ATP. In old trees, the greater part of secondary xylem is dark brown and resistant to insect attack due to secretion of secondary metabolites and their deposition in the lumen of a vessel, deposition of organic compounds like tannins and resins in the central layer of the stem. In old trees, the greater part of secondary xylem is dark brown due to deposition of organic compounds like tannins, resins, oils, gums, aromatic substances, and essential oils in the central or innermost layers of the stem. These substances make it hard, durable, and resistant to the attacks of microorganisms and insects. The appearance of recombination nodules on homologous chromosomes during meiosis characterizes the site at which crossing over occurs. Packaging stage of meiosis is characterized by the appearance of recombination nodules. The sites at which crossing over occurs between non-sister chromatids of homologous chromosomes. There are two statements. One is Mendel studied seven pairs of contrasting traits in pea plants and proposed the laws of inheritance. Number two is seven characters examined by Mendel in his experiment on pea plants were seed shape and color, flower color, pod shape and color, flower position, and stem height. Answer both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. Gregor J. Mendel conducted hybridization experiments on garden peas and selected 14 true breeding pea plant varieties. 7 contrasting traits. Contrasting traits studied were smooth or wrinkled seeds, yellow or green seeds inflated on constricted pods, green or yellow pods, tall or dwarf plants, violet or white flowers, and axial or terminal flower position. Transposons can be used during gene silencing. As the source of the complementary RNA for RNAi could be mobile genetic elements transposons that replicate via an RNA intermediate. While explaining interspecific interaction of population, plus sign is assigned for a beneficial interaction. Minus sign is assigned for a detrimental interaction and zero for neutral interaction. Mm, uh, which of the interaction can be assigned plus for one specifies and minus for another specifies involved in the interaction? Answer is predation. In predation, one species is benefited whereas other is harmed. It is plus minus type of population interaction. Thalamus is a false fruit. False fruit develops from the other floral parts and thalamus along with the development of ovary wall. Addition of more solutes in a given solution will lower its water potential. If some solute is dissolved in pure water, the solution has lower free water and the concentration of water decreases, reducing its water potential. The magnitude of this lowering due to dissolution of a solute is called solute potential. Myotonic dystrophy occurs due to the presence of autosome linked dominant trait. Hemophilia is a X-linked recessive disorder. Thalassemia is an autosomal recessive disorder. Sickle cell anemia is an autosomal recessive disorder. Myotonic dystrophy is an autosomal dominant disorder. That is, it occurs due to the presence of autosomal linked dominant trait. Weathering of rocks will accelerate phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus cycle is a sedimentary cycle. Reservoir pool of phosphorus in ecosystem is the Earth's crust or lithosphere. Weathering of rocks accelerate phosphorus cycle. What is the role of large bundle sheet cells found around the vascular bundles in C4 plants? Answer is to increase the number of chloroplasts for the operation of Calvin cycle. The large cells around the vascular bundles of C4 plants form bundle sheath. These cells have large number of chloroplasts to perform Calvin cycle. If a geneticist uses the blind approach for sequencing the whole genome of an organism, followed by assignment of function to different segments, the methodology adopted by him is called as sequence annotation. Sequencing the whole set of genome that contained all the coding and non-coding sequences and later assigning different regions in the sequence with functions is called sequence annotation. The anatomy of springwood shows some peculiar features. It is also called as the early wood. It is lighter in color. The springwood along with autumn wood shows alternate concentric rings forming angular rings and it has lower density. Spring wood is also called early wood. It is lighter in color and has a lower density. The vessels are produced with the wider lumens to transport more water to meet the requirement by increased transpiring surface in spring season. The spring and autumn wood appear as alternate concentric rings of light and dark color forming annual rings. The entire fleet of buses in Delhi were converted to CNG from diesel. In reference to this, the same diesel engine is used in CNG buses, making the cost of conversion low. It is a wrong answer because CNG is cheaper than petrol and it burns more efficiently, unlike petrol or diesel. It also cannot be adulterated like diesel and petrol. The same diesel engine cannot be used in CNG buses for making the cost conversion low. In situ conservation refers to protect and conserve the whole ecosystem. When we conserve and protect the whole ecosystem, its biodiversity at all levels is protected. This is in situ or on site conservation strategy. In which of the following animals' digestive tract has additional chambers like crop and gizzard? Options are Corvus columbia chameleon. Number 2, buffalo, balano, petra, bangaras. Number 3 option, catla, columba, crocodilus. Number 4 option is, fourth option is pavo, Psittacula corvus. Option 4 is the correct answer. Pavo means peacock, botanical zoological name. Psittacula parrot, corvus crow, and columba pigeon are birds. Cutla is a bony fish. Crocodilus, chameleon, and bangaras are reptiles. Buffa is an amphibian, and Balanopetra is an aquatic mammal. So, remaining are wrong answers. If the length of a DNA molecule is 1.1 meters, what will be the approximate number of base pairs? Answer is 3.3 into BP 10 to the power of 9. There are two statements. One is fatty acids and glycerols cannot be absorbed into the blood. Statement 2 is specialized lymphatic capillaries called lacteals carry cloim, chylomicrons into lymphatic vessels and ultimately into the blood. Both statements 1 and 2 are correct because mm, as fatty acids and a glycerol being insoluble in water cannot be absorbed into the blood. They are first incorporated into small droplets called micelles, which moves into the intestinal mucosa. They are reformed into very small protein coated fat globules called chylomicrons, which are transported into the lymph vessels lacteals in the villi. These lymph cells ultimately release the absorbed substances into the bloodstream. There are two statements. Statement 1 is autoimmune disorder is a condition where body defense mechanism recognizes its own cells as foreign bodies. Statement 2 is rheumatoid arthritis is a condition where body does not attack self cells. Answer. Autoimmune disorder is a condition where body defense mechanism recognizes its own cells as foreign bodies. Sometimes due to genetic and other unknown reasons, the body attacks self cells. Rheumatoid arthritis is an example where body attacks self cells, synovial membrane. So, which of the following statements are true for spermatogenesis but do not hold true for oogenesis? Options are A. It results in the formation of haploid gametes. B. Differentiation of gamete occurs after completion of meiosis. C. Meiosis occurs continuously in a mitotically dividing stem cell population. D. It is controlled by the luteinizing hormone LH and follicle stimulating hormone FSH secreted by the anterior pituitary. It is initiated at puberty. Answer is differentiation of a gamete occurs after the completion of meiosis. Meiosis occurs continuously in a mitotically dividing stem cell population and it is initiated at puberty. In both spermatogenesis and oogenesis, haploid gametes are formed. The spermatids are transformed into spermatozoa sperms by the process called spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis and oogenesis both are controlled by LH and FSH secreted by anterior pituitary. Spermatogenesis is a continuous process that begins at puberty. If spermatogenesis, oogenesis, on the other hand, begins during embryonic development of the female. There are two statements. Osteoporosis is characterized by decreased bone mass and increased chance of fractures. Reason common cause of osteoporosis is increased levels of estrogen. Answer assertion is correct, but the reason is not correct. Osteoporosis is due to decreased levels of estrogen. Osteoporosis is an age related disorder characterized by decreased bone mass, hence, the chance of fracture increases. There are two statements. One is restriction endonucleases recognize specific sequence to cut DNA known as palindromic nucleotide sequence. Number two statement is restriction endonucleases cut the DNA strand a little away from the center of the palindromic site. Answer both statements are correct. Each restriction endonuclease recognizes a specific palindromic nucleotide sequences in the DNA. It will bind to the DNA and cut each of the two strands of double helix at specific points. Restriction enzymes cut the strand of DNA a little away from the center of the palindrome site, but between the same two bases on the opposite strands. So both statements are correct. Lips loop is a type of contraceptive used as non-medicated IUDs because the intrauterine device IUD presently available as the non-medicated IUDs is lips loop. Under normal physiological conditions in human being, every 100 ml of oxygenated blood can deliver 5 ml of O2 to the tissues because every 100 ml of oxygenated blood can deliver around 5 ml of O2 to the tissues under normal or physiological conditions. There are two statements. Assertion all vertebrates are chordates, but all chordates are not vertebrates. Reason notochord is replaced by vertebral column in the adult vertebrates. Answer is both assertion and reason uh, are correct because all chordates are divided into three subphyla: Urochordata, Cephalochordata, and Vertebrata. In subphylum Vertebrata, notochord is replaced by bony or cartilaginous vertebra column in adults. Therefore, all vertebrates are chordates, but all chordates are not vertebrates. Which of the following is not a connective tissue? Neuralgia. Neuralgia are the supportive cells of nervous tissue. They make up more than half the volume of neural tissue. Neurons, the units of neural system, are excitable cells. Here, cartilage and blood are specialized type of connective tissue, and adipose tissue is a type of loose connective tissue. Nitrogenous waste is excreted in the form of pellet or paste by pavo. Because birds pavo excrete nitrogenous waste as uric acid in the form of pellet or paste with a minimum loss of water. Regarding meiosis, which of the statement is incorrect? Answer: in S phase of meiosis, DNA replication occurs too is wrong answer. In meiosis involves two sequential cycles of nuclear and cell division called meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, but only single cycle of DNA replication. The stage between two meiotic divisions is called interkinase and is generally short-lived and involves no DNA replication. In an Escherichia coli strain, hygiene gets mutated and its product cannot bind the inducer molecule. If a growth medium is provided with lactose, what will be the outcome? ZYA genes will not be translated as the product of hygiene binds with the operator region and block the transcription and translation of ZY and a gene. Its product is prevented from binding to the operator by attaching it with the inducer, as the inducer can now more capable of binding with the repressor. Thus, in all the cases, operator always gets attached with the repressor, thereby preventing the transcription and the transmission of ZY and A. Even in the presence of lactose, transcription and translation of Z, Y, and A would not occur. Arthritis is a disease and symptoms inflamed joints. Arthritis is a inflammation of joints. Tetany is rapid spasms in muscle due to low Ca++ in body fluid. Myasthenia gravis is mm, an immune disorder affecting neuromuscular junction leading to fatigue, weakening, and paralysis of skeletal muscle. Muscular dystrophy is a progressive degenerative of skeletal muscle mostly due to genetic disorder. Identify the microorganism which is responsible for the production of an immunosuppressive molecule, cyclosporin A. Answer is Trichoderma polysporum. Bioactive molecule cyclosporin A that is used as an immunosuppressive agent in organ transplant patients is produced by the fungus Trichoderma polysporum. There are two statements. Number one is mycoplasma can pass through less than 1 micron filter size. Number two statement is mycoplasma are bacterial with a cell wall. Statement 1 is correct and statement 2 is incorrect. Mycoplasma are the smallest cells and are only 0.3 μm in length, so it can pass through less than 1 μm filter size. Mycoplasma lack cell wall. There are two statements. One is the coagulum is formed of network of the threads called the thrombins. Statement 2 is spleen is the graveyard of erythrocytes. Here, statement 1 is incorrect and statement 2 is correct. Answers. mm, Coagulum or clot is formed mainly of a network of threads called fibrins. Hence, statement 1 is incorrect. RBCs are destroyed in the spleen, so spleen is known as the graveyard of erythrocytes. Hence, the statement 2 is correct. A dehydration reaction links to glucose molecule to produce maltose. If the formula for glucose is C6H12O6, then what is the formula of maltose? Answer is C12H22O11. Because maltose is a disaccharide formed by dehydration process, that is synthesis by elimination of one water molecule to form a glycosidic bond in between two glucose molecules. So its molecular formula is C6H12O6 into 2 in the presence of H2O, gives rise C12H22O11. Cartilage is present between the adjacent bones of the vertebral column. Answer, because cartilage forming in the invertebral disc is present between the adjacent bones of the vertebral column, and it is type of cartilaginous joint. Tegmina in cockroach arises from mesothorax. Because tegmina are forewings, the first pair of wings in cockroach arises from mesothorax. There are two statements. The release of sperm into the seminiferous tubules is called spermination. Number two statement is spermiogenesis is the process of formation of sperm from spermatogonia. Answer, statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. Solution. Because statement 2 is incorrect, as the transformation of spermatids in spermatozoa are called spermiogenesis. After this, sperm head becomes embedded in the serotoli cells and are finally released from the seminiferous tubules by the process called spermiation. Hence, the statement 1 is correct statement. Spermatogenesis is the process of formation of sperms from spermatogonia. If 8 Drosophila in a laboratory population of 80 died during a week, the death rate in the population is 0.1 individuals per Drosophila per week. If Drosophila in a laboratory population of 80 died during a week, the death rate in the population is 8 by 80 is equal to 0.1 individuals per Drosophila per week. Natural selection, where more individuals acquire specific character value other than the mean character value, leads to directional changes. Answer, because in the directional natural selection, more individuals acquire value other than the mean character value. Which of the following is not the function of conducting part of respiratory system? Answer is provides a surface for diffusion of O2 and carbon dioxide. Because the part starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles constitute the conducting part, whereas the alveoli and their ducts form the respiratory or exchange part of the respiratory system. The conducting part transports the atmospheric air to the alveoli, clears clears it from foreign particles, humidifies and also bring the air to body temperature. Exchange part is the site of actual diffusion of O2 or CO2 between blood and atmospheric air. Breeding crops with higher levels of vitamins and minerals or higher proteins and healthier fats is called biofortification. Breeding crops with a higher level of vitamins and minerals or higher proteins and healthier fats is known as biofortification. Mm, Here, another phenomenon, biomagnification, refers to increase in concentration of the toxicant at successive trophic levels. Another phenomenon is bioremediation, is the phenomenon of using biological organism to handle pollution. In the taxonomic categories, which hierarchical arrangement is ascending order is correct in case of animals? Answer is kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. At which stage of life the oogenesis process is initiated? Embryonic development stage. As oogenesis is initiated during the embryonic development stage when a couple of million gamete mother cells oogonia are formed within each fertile ovary. No more oogonia are formed and added after birth in a human female. At puberty, only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles are left in each ovary. Rest degenerate during the phase from birth to puberty. Identify the asexual reproductive structure associated with penicillium. Conidia. Conidia are the asexual reproductive structures produced in penicillium. Gemmules are produced in sponge. Buds are produced in hydra. Juice pores are produced in chlamydomonas. In gene therapy of adenosine deaminase deficiency, the patient requires a periodic infusion of genetically engineered lymphocytes because genetically engineered lymphocytes are not immortal cells. Select the incorrect statement with reference to mitosis. Spindle fibers attached to centromere of chromosomes is the incorrect statement. Because so spindle fibers attached to the kinetochores of chromosomes. Kinetochores are the disc-shaped structure present on sides of primary constriction or centromere of chromosomes. Retrievers break down detritus into smaller particles. This process is called fragmentation. Detritivores, example earthworm, break down detritus into smaller particles. This process is called fragmentation. If a colorblind female marries a man whose mother was also colorblind, what are the chances of her progeny having colorblindness? 100%. If mother of man is colorblind, then man will also be colorblind, as colorblindness is a X-linked recessive trait and shows crisscross inheritance. About genetically engineered insulin. A peptide and B peptide chains of insulin were produced separately in Escherichia coli, extracted and combined by creating disulfide bond between them. Blood moves freely from atrium to the ventricle during joint diastole. Because during joint diastole, blood moves freely from atrium to ventricle as the atrioventricular valve remain open during joint diastole. There is a match glycogen storage product, globulin antibody, steroids hormone, thrombin biocatalyst. Explanation. Globulin glycogen is a polysaccharide and is a storage product in animals. Globulins form antibodies which are also known as immunoglobulins. Steroids form hormones like testosterone. Thrombin is a biocatalyst which converts soluble fibrogen to insoluble fibrin. Which of the following are not the effects of parathyroid hormone? No, answer is decreases Ca2 plus level in blood, decreases the absorption of Ca2 plus from digestion food, increases metabolism of carbohydrates. Because parathyroid hormone is a hypercalcemic hormone, that is it increases the blood calcium level. It also increases the absorption of calcium from digested food. Presence of two or more recognition sites are not a desirable feature of a cloning vector. Cloning vectors are the carriers of the desired gene in the host cell. The features desirable in cloning vectors are presence of origin replication, presence of marker genes, presence of very few, preferably single recognition sites site for the commonly used restriction enzymes. Which of the following statement is not true? Flippers of penguins and dolphins are a pair of homologous organs. Is not true because flippers of penguins and dolphins are analogous organs as they help in swimming but do not have the same structure. Homologous organs have the same structure but have different function according to the needs of the organism. Hence, a homologous indicates common ancestry. Analogous structures have developed for the same function but do not show similarity in structure. Hence, they are result of convergent evolution. Sweet potato is a root modification for food storage, whereas potato is an underground stem modification for storage. Hence, they are analogous. So, select the incorrect statement regarding synapses. The impulse transmission across a chemical synapse is always faster than that across an electrical synapse. Answer is an impulse transmission across an electrical synapse is always faster than that across a chemical synapse. Chemical synapses use chemicals for transmission, which are known as neurotransmitters. The membrane of presynaptic and postsynaptic neurons are in close proximity in an electric synapse. In an electrical synapse, the transmission of the impulse occurs in the form of an electrical current from one neuron to the next neuron. Here is a matching bronchioles, glandular tissue, globular cells, ciliated epithelium, tendons, loose connective tissue, adipose tissue is dense regular connective tissue. Ciliated epithelium is mainly present in the inner surface of all organs like bronchioles and fallopian tubes. The function is to move particles or mucus in a specific direction over the epithelium. In some of the columnar or cuboidal cells get specialized for secretion and are called glandular epithelium. Globular cells are unicellular glands. Tendons are dense regular connective tissues. They attach skeletal muscles to bones. Adipose tissue is a type of loose connective tissue located mainly beneath the skin. The cells of this tissue are specialized to store fats. Lactational amenorrhea is a natural method of contraception and it is based on the fact that the ovulation and therefore menstrual cycle do not occur during the period of intense lactation following parturition. Intrauterine devices encourages the phagocytosis of sperms within the uterus. Contraceptive pills are the preparations containing either progesterone alone or a combination of progesterone and estrogen. They inhibit ovulation and implantation as well as alter the quality of cervical mucus to prevent entry of sperms. Diaphragms are barrier methods of contraception. They cover the cervix and block the entry of sperms. Autotrophic organism classified under kingdom Monera, cyanobacteria are a group of. There are two statements. In a scrubber, the exhaust from the thermal plant is passed through the electric wires to charge the dust particles. Number two statement is particulate matter PM 2.5 cannot be removed by scrubber but can be removed by an electrostatic precipitator. Answer statement 1 and 2 1 is incorrect and 2 is correct. Scrubber is used by the industries which produce SO2 as a byproduct. The limestone present in slurry of scrubber removes SO2 from the exhaust. Electrostatic precipitator is the most effective device to remove 99% of particulate matter, even PM 2.5 present in the exhaust.